Well, the President and the First Lady left Windsor earlier this evening and headed for Scotland, where they're spending a private weekend. Donald and Melania Trump flew to Prestwick on Air Force One and were then driven to the village of Turnberry in Ayrshire, where Mr Trump owns one of the golf resorts there. And our Scotland editor, Sarah Smith, is there. And do we have any idea what this weekend holds for them, Sarah?
Well, there's no official schedule for the weekend. I think it's a pretty safe bet that President Trump will want to get in a round of golf. He often says that Turnberry is his favourite amongst all of his properties. And in fact, as soon as he arrived here, he came out the front of the hotel to admire the view and chat to some of the other guests who are staying here this weekend. It might not, though, be quite the relaxing couple of days that he was hoping for. Already this evening, a Greenpeace demonstrator has flown a paraglider over the hotel and the resort, carrying the banner that said, "Trump well below par." It's a golf pun there, obviously. He got within about 100 yards of the president, who was then quickly ushered back inside the hotel. We're told that Greenpeace warned the police only about 10 minutes before this happened, and it seemed that they were unable to stop him from flying over the hotel. Tomorrow, demonstrators will again try and get as close to here as they can in an attempt to make themselves seen and heard by the president. And there's a big official demonstration march taking place through Edinburgh city centre tomorrow. There will be lots of prominent Scottish politicians at that. Not Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon, though. Now, she doesn't have a meeting scheduled with President Trump. She's been outspoken in her criticism of him in the past, and he's said not to like her very much. She won't be taking part in any of the anti-Trump protests. What she plans to spend the weekend doing is leading the Glasgow Pride March, and she'll hope that by doing that, she's sending a message to Donald Trump in her own way.
Sarah, once again, thanks very much. Sarah Smith, our Scotland editor there in Turnberry tonight. And with me in the studio, two colleagues who've been following today's events minute by minute, our political editor, Laura Kuenssberg, our North America editor, John Sopel. Laura, first of all, the very critical remarks overnight in that press interview which the President gave. Did they change during the course of the day or not?
They certainly rolled back, to the huge relief of number 10. Donald Trump had certainly changed his tone after really sending both barrels to the Prime Minister the night before he was due to meet her at her beautiful country home for a big set-piece event, the most high-profile kind of event that any British Prime Minister ever has to cope with. But while his language certainly rolled back, and Downing Street will prize his commitment to want to do a trade deal with Britain in future, the reservations were still obvious. The awkwardness between the two of them was still very much in evidence. And the reason why really his criticism hurts is not just because that is the view of many people outside the UK, but it's also the view of many people in Theresa May's extremely fractious, grumpy Tory party right now, that her Brexit compromise, which, remember, is her biggest political project, is not quite what people voted for, not quite what people dreamed of if they were on the Leave side of the referendum. So today, Donald Trump did roll back, and in that sense, he spared her blushes. But the idea that somehow the difficulties around this policy have disappeared, that's for the birds.
John, can we talk a little more about the tensions that were evident today, again? This phrase that he used about the relationship between the US and the UK, the highest level of special, is that more than just a pretty form of words?
Well, it is a pretty form of words, but British Prime Ministers are always flattered by the attention of an American president. They love it when they talk about the special relationship. And Donald Trump, the highest form of special, what could it be better than that? So Theresa May will have enjoyed that, but she will also know just how many problems there are as well. Yes, there is a special relationship when it comes to defence and intelligence matters. The two kind of countries are very closely integrated on that. But on all sorts of other matters, it's much more tricky. As Laura has just said, on trade, it's going to be very tough when the Brexit negotiations have played their way through to find a kind of trade deal between the US and UK. These things are never easy. And you look at all the other issues that allies of the United States have struggled with, whether it's Canada and Justin Trudeau or Macron or Merkel, whether it be Iran, tariffs, climate change, NATO support. None of them have found Donald Trump easy to deal with. But let's not play down what happened today. We discovered that Donald Trump has a reverse gear, and he wound it back significantly from what he said in the Sun interview. That was to be banked. He also said something else which we don't often hear. He said at the news conference, "I apologise to Theresa May for what I'd said in the Sun interview." Apologies from Donald Trump are rare indeed.
OK, John, once again, and Laura, thank you both very much indeed.